Hello, and welcome back to Invitation to Puzzles, where today we have a giant Yajilin by Bachelor Seal. Now, I've said this kind of thing before, so I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that we have done Yajilin puzzles on the channel before. So Tristan will be very shortly yelling at me as he edits this that no, we haven't. But anyway, I'll go over the rules just so that you can see them and see the example puzzle. But we have done smaller examples, so if this might be a bit intimidating if you've never done a Yajilin puzzle before in terms of size and scope and all of that, so you can keep that in mind. But I'll show you this example, as always, so that you can look at it. I guess Tristan edits these in, I don't know. So we need to shade some cells on the board and draw a single loop that goes through every unshaded cell. Not counting clues, by the way. The loop cannot branch or cross itself, so it's a loop. It does loopy things. You cannot make any two shaded cells orthogonally adjacent. That is a common rule in a lot of these sorts of things. So they can't touch. Cells with numbers or question marks cannot be shaded and are not part of the loop, so your loop does not go through those. And a number indicates the amount of shaded cells in that given direction. So the loop ultimately, and again, I guess you can't really see this, but Tristan will show you an example. The loop ultimately visits every unshaded, unclued cell. Okay, so we have a few tools at our disposal to handle this, but I'll go ahead and leave it there. So there's a link in the description. But let's get going with this Bachelor Seal treat. First of all, we have a few tools at our disposal. So if you right-click a cell, it will mark that there's definitely loop there, which I know there's definitely loop there because of this 0, right? This 0 says none of these cells are shaded. It's good. There's a gimme with this 1, which tells me that this cell is shaded because there's one cell shaded in this direction. It means both of these are piece of the loop, and in fact, they are corners, so the loop has to look like that. I have this option clicked here to color loop segments different colors. You can do that or not. It will help at the end to make sure that you don't make a very large mini loop, is basically why I do that. This 2 is forced by this 0 because now I need 2 shaded cells here. And remember, they can't touch, so they have to look like that. Everything that touches this is immediately done. This 2 clue over here is now done because we've got 2 shaded cells in its direction. So we get that, and so we've got lots of assorted things that we can do, like those corners. This corridor just has to go like that. That's on the loop, and there's no other way it could possibly go. And now this is a corner again, and this is a corner again, and this is a corridor. This is a corner. This is a corridor, which is just a corner that goes vertically. A corner is just to be super clear, a corner is just a cell where the loop only has 2 ways to go, and because loop always goes 2 ways, that just tells you what happens. And so a corridor is a corner where the 2 ways happen to be horizontal or vertical, and a corner is a corner where that's not the case. This is actually a dead end, this cell right here. And that's because this cell doesn't have 2 ways to go. It only has 1 way to go. So that means it's not on the loop at all. So we can shade it. That actually forces this end to come down here and connect. And notably, that shaded cell within this row creates a bunch of dots down over here. Now that's also a dead end. Okay, so we can also fill in that little piece of corner, this little piece of corner, and now that only has 1 way to go. This only has 1 way to go. And I see we have made another dead end here. There's only 3 of the ways are blocked off. If 3 of the ways are blocked off, that cell's a dead end, and you have no choice but to shade it. This 4 sees 2 of these, so it needs 2 more, and there's only 1 way to do that again. This is now a corridor again. Uh, let's see. This 3 is pointing at a 3. That means this cell's unshaded, because if this cell was shaded, then this 3 would make this a 4, because there'd be 3 over here plus 1 would be 4. So that's a corridor as well. I can do the same thing with this 2, 2 over here like this. I can at least mark this 2 feeding into that 2 in a similar capacity. This 3 is not quite forced. There's some things I can do, but I'm not ready to do them yet. This is a dead end again. 3 directions are blocked off, so that tells me what that corner looks like and what this corner looks like. Let's see. Okay, so this is maybe clearest here. This 2, and this is going to show you another notation tool. It needs to be one of these 2 and one of these 2, because if it wasn't, it would be both of these or both of these, and both of those are bad. And so what that means is that my loop can never move horizontally across either that space or that space. And to mark that, we have this little X that is just there to say, hey, we need to make sure of that. Okay. Now, that is kind of useful because it tells me that this cell is definitely not shaded. And that's because if this cell is shaded, it creates a dead end here. But then that would have to be shaded, and that would be 2 shaded cells next to each other. So I think it was Selena always called these potential dead ends. If you have an area that only has 2 exits as it is, that you don't know if it's shaded or not, it could still be shaded, but nothing next to it can be shaded. So this, it's either a corridor or it's shaded. In either event, that's unshaded. And this is either a corridor or it's shaded. So therefore, those are both unshaded. That's the basic idea of that kind of deduction. Now, here's something slightly fancy. This cell here, and I'm going to phrase it in a way that's less look-aheady than the way I think people would usually phrase this. So the way people would usually phrase this, let me phrase it that way first, is that I can't do this, because if I do this, I've made this cell into a dead end, but it's not allowed to be. So here's a different way to think about that. And the other way to think about this is with this sort of 2 out of 3 rule, which is that this is a piece of loop that needs to connect in 2 of 3 directions. And it could connect to that end, or here. And what that means is it always connects to one of the ends of this loop. So I cannot connect these 2 to each other, which means I can't do that. If you think that's exactly the same and you don't like it anymore than the other way, that's totally fine. But I like that way slightly better because it feels slightly more gettable. Okay. Now, this loop either needs to connect this way or go down. But if it goes down, it pushes this purple down, which is not a problem with anything except this 2. Remember, this X is here because I know one of these 2 is shaded, which is weird because X doesn't mean one of these 2 is shaded. X means the loop doesn't cross this edge. But in this case, the reason I know the loop doesn't cross this edge is I know one of these 2 is shaded, which it won't be if I pull this down, because if I pull this down, it turns this into a corner. Again, just to sort of show you, and does that. We should not do that. Okay, so therefore this does not go down and it comes over here, which has now made that a dead end, which has made this not a dead end. And so we've got some corners here that we can chase like that. Okay, now this 3 here, I didn't want to have to do anything fancy, and now I don't have to, because now the maximum number of clues I can put here is 3, and I get me some corridors out of that. This is also a corridor and a corner if you want. Uh, this is a corner. So that's a corner. So that's made this into a corridor. It's made that into a corner, which has made this into a corner and that into a corner. Very good. Okay. So now there's a few different things I can do, and all of them are a little bit hard. Well, all the ones I see are a little bit hard. The one I most see is that this cell has to be shaded. If this cell isn't shaded, then the way I'm making this 2 is by shading both of these, which looks okay until you realize that it creates 3 corridors that immediately turn this into a T. And that's not okay. I cannot actually do that. And that's just a general rule. You can never have shaded cells one apart against the edge. So, or on the edge. So sort of like on the edge or one away from the edge. This pattern just always breaks because it creates a T-junction. And so actually the most number of cells I can shade out of these 3 is 1. So I have to shade that, which is then going to create a corner and a corridor over there, which makes that cell a dead end. Makes this bend around this way. And now this is a corner. And so now that is a dead end. It's like a super dead end if you want. It is as dead as an end can get. Oh, by the way, speaking of, I never filled in that this was a corner. I don't know how useful it is, but it's true. It's probably not going to be very useful. Okay, so I still know one of these 3 is shaded. I don't know quite what to do with that. Certainly, I know neither of these is shaded for the same reason that I mentioned. So if I shade that cell, I create the T-junction. Oh, sorry. No, sorry. Never mind. Sorry, that's not true. I was going to say something wrong. Do not listen to me. That could be shaded. This 3 does not look interesting yet. This 2 is either both of these or that, and I don't see any information falling out of that yet. This 2 is getting tight, but it's not quite so tight that I know what to do with it yet. There we go. This cell cannot be shaded. Because if this cell is shaded, I've immediately created a dead end. So that's unshaded. But that means this 2 has to look like that exactly. Because there's no other way to fit these 2 in. You can also, by the way, make that argument, and if you want, you can do this for every puzzle of this sort. I can't shade either of these, because if I shade either of these cells, like if I shade that, I immediately create a dead end in the corner. So you can, if you want, it rarely is helpful, but you can immediately immediately mark those things as loop, and cells like that one and that one would also create a dead end if you were not careful. But the biggest thing I wanted to note is that that means that this is a corridor. And that assuredly is useful because... Question mark, question mark, question mark. I don't know yet. Notably, all the arrows point that way, so I don't have a great deal that I can do with that. That I can see. There's only one shaded over here. This is definitely in the loop because it would create a dead end both there and there if this were shaded. These are both in because they would create a dead end here if they were shaded. Oh, this continues. I don't know how long that's been hanging there. This is stuck between two clues, so it continues. And then that's very nice because now I can't make these two loop ends the same connect. And that's the whole reason for the coloring, is so that when you end up in this situation, it can be quite hard visually, at least for me, to follow the loop. But I know I can't connect these because it would make a mini loop. So they have to go the way that doesn't connect them, and they have to go the way that doesn't connect them. And now the two needs its second fill, and again they have to go the way that doesn't connect them, and so this ends up over here. Now that's a dead end, which means these are both in because of the one clue. That's in. This is a corner. Now the two down here now has to be those two. So we know that goes through the middle. This is now a corridor. So that's a corner, and that's a corner again. This is certainly a corner. That's a corner. If either of these two cells is shaded, the other becomes a corner. So if that's shaded, that's a corner. If that's shaded, that's a corner. Can't do that. So that always ends up going like that. And now I've got another 2. Which forces that up there. This needs to go through there. This is a corner now. This is a corner. This is a passageway, corridor, whatever you want to call it. Here's a deduction that I think probably is not the intended one here, but that I'll use anyway, just because it shows up a lot in Yajilin puzzles. If I look at this cell that I have my cursor over, I have to connect it 2 of the 3 ways, and those 2 ways are not that. Because if I do that, I've created a little loop. And so I actually know it has to go this way, which is sometimes useful in and of itself, because it sort of tells you both of these are in. I don't think it's useful here, but it's a pattern that I talk about a lot, and so it's probably worth mentioning. This 3 clue, though, is what I'm actually supposed to look at, because now if I look across the row, the only 2 cells that can be shaded are those, which forces that through that corner. This is now a dead end, so that forces that up through there, that up through there. And I can repeat that same exact argument in this cell. It can't go horizontally, which it would if it didn't go up, so it has to go up. This is now just tucked neatly through there, and that's a dead end. This is a corner. Let's see. Well, this, funnily enough, is not shaded, because if it was, it would force this to be a loop. I can't imagine that's a useful observation, but I'm going to note it because I saw it, and I'm proud of it. Somehow I have sort of the opposite reaction to, like, I saw something and it's a little gross in pencil puzzles. Usually in pencil puzzles, like, I saw it and I'm proud of it. And usually in Sudoku, it's like, I saw it and I'm disgusted. Okay, this cell can't be shaded because it would create a dead end there. I don't know how this loop ended up having to go this way. How did it end up having to go that way? I don't know. I'm going to trust it, though. It's because of this cell. Right, okay. Yeah, so I can't create a dead end there. If this was in, it would create it. Sorry, if this was shaded, it would create a dead end there. That certainly helps a little bit with my 2. But I'm not quite there yet. I don't have anything that's, like, completely filled in that I didn't mark, do I? That's always, like, the sort of nightmare scenario, is that you actually did complete a clue and just didn't notice that you'd completed the clue. But I don't think so. 2 of these 3, huh? That's kind of sneaky for a Bachelor Seal puzzle. I can't make that shaded. because if I do, I have the problem that this, I don't know, seasick-ish loop over here needs to get out because I can't connect it. But if I make this shaded, now the only way it can get out is through this one cell, but I can't get two ends of a loop out through one cell. So that can't be shaded, so these two are shaded. It's possible that there was another way to do this. Okay, I still can't connect those. Still can't connect these. Now it's a corner. Still can't connect these. This can't go up and down, so it has to go that way. Okay. Do I have to continue chasing that idea that I have to get this loop out somehow? Doesn't look that restricted. I'm being completely honest. There's two shaded cells in here, which looks fine. I mean, it can't be those two. I guess that tells me something. Okay, I don't know if this is going to be useful, but I'm going to do it anyway. I need to shade two of these, because remember, two of them are already up there. It can't be these two, because if I shade these two, then I've created a dead end here. So therefore, I need to shade one of these two, which gets me my usual X of I need to shade one of these two, which means neither of those is ever shaded. That may do exactly nothing. This cell I see can't be shaded for the same loopish reason that I mentioned before, which is that if I shade this cell, I make it impossible to get two loop ends out because of this kink that I have right here. So that's definitely in. And now I can use my 2 out of 3 rule on this cell to say that I definitely break the world if I do that, because now I've hemmed in this whole loop. So this definitely has to go that way. And in fact, actually, it can't even connect up, because if this connects up, again, now I've only allowed myself one way out of this whole shebang. So it actually has to connect that way. This can't actually go this way either, because if this goes this way, I've again only left myself one way out of this whole area. So this has to go that way. And assuredly, these can't connect, because then again, I've finished the loop. So that has to go that way. These definitely aren't connecting, because if these connect vertically, then I create this problem where I block this off again, so that connects horizontally there. Now this only has the horizontal connection to make. And now we get all of that, and that is a shaded cell. Okay. Oh, I just can't shade this cell. This has been available forever. I just can't shade this cell. If this cell was shaded, it creates a dead end right there. So this has been a corner, and that probably would have made that whole thing a lot easier, because now that's a corner, now this is a dead end, now that's in, now this is a corner. Yeah, that whole thing would have been a lot easier had I done this better. Okay, so now I'm back in the situation of needing to get these two loop ends out, but now through here. So that's going to have to look like this, with that winding around over there. If I don't do that, if I don't have this end here being two loop ends coming out, the two loop ends just aren't getting out, because they're the same color, and I can even go sort of one further with each of those. Okay, and so now my one shaded cell in this column is that one, which makes that a corner. And now my two shaded cells for this 4 have to be those two, which creates some corridors and some corners, and I need to keep getting these loop segments out because they can't meet, and so they come out over there. This is a corner. That's at a corner. That connects. So now we get the very satisfying kathunk as the whole loop connects. And so now we've got only a little bit that's not part of this main loop. This is a corridor. That's a corner. This extends. That's a corner. Oops. And now that's a corner. And now that's done. Woohoo! Nice puzzle there. That was a little harder than I was expecting, but very nice. And I might have been able, if I had just noticed that this cell could not be shaded right away, it might have been the case that I could have avoided every time I said something about getting two loop ends out of some corner or another. But it was still pretty nicely telegraphed to think about that, so I think it's pretty reasonable. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know how it went for you in the comments. Let me know what you think of Yajilin as a pencil puzzle genre in general. And I'll see everyone real soon. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye for now.